Hello, my friends. As Paul kind of wrote of the coming of the Lord, he said it is not going to be beyond anybody who knows the Lord, the timing of His coming. They're going to know. They're going to understand. They're going to recognize. They're going to come at that time of the end, whenever Christ is coming back. They're going to come without words even express that they have that knowing, that longing that they share to be with the Lord, what they feel in their spirit. They're not going to have any need of anybody to tell them anything of that feeling or what that feeling means. They're going to know and understand it. Much as a woman who becomes pregnant is aware of her pregnancy. She might not feel anything, for the first few months or even up, 6, 9, 12 weeks in some circumstances. She might not feel anything particularly out of the ordinary. But I'm sure, as I can't experience, obviously, being pregnant myself as a man, but having gone through 3 separate pregnancies and births, I recognize that women do change over the course of their pregnancy. And of course, anybody listening to me who has had children, I'm sure that you would probably agree with that blank statement, that the further you get along in your pregnancy, the more you feel pregnant. It's not like it's some mystery as to why. I mean, you start to get bigger and your belly grows and the hormones all begin to change, different food tastes, all kinds of different things. Whenever you're pregnant after a certain point, and as you're getting closer to that birth, the delivery of the child, you understand and know that you feel more pregnant as you're going along. Pregnancy isn't going in the reversal. Week 36 is feeling different than it was in week 12, say. There's a feeling of being more pregnant, a fullness to that. And with that, a lot of times, not for all women, but most women begin to experience uncomfort. They become uncomfortable. You got this big belly and you're walking around on a hot summer day. It's just uncomfortable for most women. There's a lot of feelings that are never there any other time than whenever you're pregnant. You just know the more pregnant that you are, the closer that birth is going to come. The closer to that 40-week day, you begin to feel it more so. And I also, kind of along with this, sometimes if there is a birth that's going to happen unexpectedly, in other words, you've been given your delivery date throughout the course of your pregnancy, a lot of times whenever that delivery date is actually moved forward because of an emergency, a lot of times there's signs that that's going to come to be like that. A lot of times a woman will just know that this particular pregnancy, something's different. I don't know if I'm going to make it the full 40 weeks, whether it be the birth weight of the baby, whenever he or she is in the womb, or whether it be spotting here or there, or different pains, different things. Sometimes there's certain hints or cues to a woman's body that baby is not going to make it full term, that there's going to have to be a delivery of that baby prior to the date that was given by your doctor whenever you first start to go in and speak with them and meet about your pregnancy. And I promise there's a point to all of this. I have the gospel up on my phone right now. I have Matthew up, where this is the story of Jesus and Mary. And this is how the birth of Jesus came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly, thinking along the lines of any man would think in that circumstance. But Mary was pregnant faithfully by the Holy Spirit. She had not been unfaithful with Joseph in the flesh. She was pregnant by the Holy Spirit, the conception of God within her. And Joseph certainly is not going to just believe that at face value, as how is that possible? But then what happens? But after he had considered this And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. So then he's visited by an angel, saying, it's okay. This woman has not been unfaithful to you in the flesh. The pregnancy is coming in the way of God. Take her to be your wife anyway. So what does Joseph do next? Of course, he takes her. He agrees with the angel, and he believes that she has been pregnant, that she is still a physical virgin, but she's pregnant by the Holy Spirit. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to the son, and he gave birth and they named him Jesus. So you got to understand our situation and how this is relating to the gospel, and also how this relates to Revelation chapter 12. People after people after people. You can go on YouTube and spend your whole month going video to video to video about the physical signs that we see with our eyes. You know, the signs of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the nations, and every other physical sign that you can think of. Jesus himself says that a wicked and adulterous generation will not be given a sign other than the sign of Jonah, which the sign of Jonah was to be swallowed in the belly of a beast for a period of 3 days and 3 nights. And if you look at the timing of the Great Tribulation, it's 3 years, 3.5 years. That period of time is known as darkness. It's cut off. It's poured into the tribulations. It's poured into the judgment of God. There's a different light that is exited from that world during the period of the Great Tribulations. The light has gone up to heaven. So anybody who is walking right now with the Lord, in the Holy Spirit, by the Holy Spirit, they themselves have conceived from that Spirit. If they are producing fruits of the Spirit, which you'll find, for instance, in Galatians 5:22, if there is fruits of the Spirit being produced on the earth, and you understand everything that Jesus said is coming to pass of what the signs in the world, the physical things in the world would be, that would mean that we are also going to know, expect, and understand that his arrival is coming. There's not going to be any doubts in our minds. We're going to begin to cut off from the things of the physical world and begin to truly understand that there is a change coming, and it has nothing to do with the physical world. It's a marriage. What are we looking to be? The bride who gets married to the bridegroom, the faithful virgin bride who has conceived by the Holy Spirit the fruits of that Spirit inside of her. And when speaking of her, it can be man or woman. We're not putting this to the physical gender that is in the world that you see Satan beginning to overcome, as now a man thinks they can be a woman and call themselves a woman, and they are, and a woman thinks they can be a man and call themselves a man, and they are. In the eyes of God, they're whatever they were conceived with from the time the egg met the sperm. They're always going to be a man, they're always going to be a woman, but whenever it comes to the faithful bride, which we call the church, we give it an entity, a body. So you're dealing with the situation of her walking a parallel to Mary. What is she going to be like? She's going to be already pregnant by the Spirit, and she's going to soon after that get married. And then the wedding, the marriage will be consummated after the birth of the child. Now compare that to what we are walking as we who are faithful, the faithful remnant who know the Lord. Compare our situation in life. That would mean that we're awaiting the birth of that child. We're awaiting the wedding supper. We're awaiting meeting the bridegroom. That would mean that we're pregnant in the Spirit. The Spirit has conceived in us, which is the temple of God in our hearts, to produce a fruit. That's a conception of the Spirit, to do the works and produce the fruits of the Holy Spirit. And in the remnant, you will find those fruits, meaning we are pregnant with child. We have a child, we're expecting them. And whenever we go through this pregnancy that we've gone through, speaking completely in a spiritual sense, when we're going through it, like a physical woman understands whenever she's in week 12 of pregnancy or week 36 in pregnancy, she can tell the difference by how she feels, whether that baby is beginning to be ready to come or not. And that is the sign that no one will recognize who does not have the eyes to see it, because they're not experiencing it. They'll recognize, the blood moons and the eclipses and the wars and the famines. They'll recognize all those things. They'll see them. But what they won't be able to do is feel when it's time for the Lord to return. And I believe, like I had mentioned earlier, whenever there is sometimes trouble within a pregnancy that's going to lead to an early deliverance, sometimes, in fact a lot of times, that woman has something during the period of her pregnancy that is different, that she can recognize that might be trouble, or this baby might have something wrong with the way it's going to come. She understands that. Many of the cases, I believe that is the situation that we live in. We are not going to full term with this baby. There's an emergency C-section that delivers that pregnant woman out of the world, because she has to go out of the world, deliver the baby, and then be married. We're talking all about the same event, just shown in different ways, just as the Lord showed it in a different way, just as Revelation showed it in a different way. We're talking about the same event, but from different perspectives. And we know there's something wrong with this delivery. We can feel it. Those who are walking with the Lord, the true remnant who know Him, we know there's something wrong. This baby is not going to come to term. It's going to be taken early, because we can feel it. I'm telling you, I feel like, I'm 32 weeks pregnant right now, and I'm walking around, and I can feel that in my spirit without ever having experienced it in the physical sense. I feel incredibly pregnant. And I'm speaking completely from the spiritual sense of it. Anybody who walks with the Lord, I believe, would be able to easily understand what I'm saying. We feel a change. We feel the heaviness. We feel the uncomfortableness that's in this world right now to live in. We're feeling really, really pregnant by this time. And something happens that baby is taken early. The good doctor, as Jesus calls himself, goes into that womb and delivers the child before the great tribulations of the woman, because natural birth is the great tribulation. Before that natural birth comes, because He took that great tribulation on Himself on the cross, that pregnant woman who is a bride to be, the same as Mary, will be taken to the wedding ceremony, where then she will be wed. They will deliver the baby and the marriage will be consummated. We're talking all about the same event of the coming of the Lord Himself to take His bride. Even though everybody else in the world is going to say, who, that person? No, not that person. They're not going to go and be saved by God. They don't know God. Just like everybody would have been telling Joseph, don't marry Mary. She's a prostitute. She is pregnant without you being involved in this. What are you, crazy? That's the same way the world looks at us. It would be like Joseph's friends. And you can picture that. It is just being in the human form. We can understand these things. We are awaiting the birth, Revelation 12, the baby being, the woman being snatched away for the period of 3.5 years. That's the sign of Jonah to the wicked generation. It sees with its eyes all these other signs, but it doesn't feel the Spirit. And we can feel the Spirit and know that the pregnancy, the birth of that pregnancy is coming. It could be days, it could be months, I don't know. But I know that I feel incredibly spiritually pregnant by the world and the weight of the world itself and all of the events that we see and everything taking place. You can just feel it. And this is why I believe that delivery, that emergency C-section, it comes just when it needs to, right on time, for the woman to be saved and snatched away from the plans of the devil. And the rest of the world goes into that great tribulations to experience that natural birth. Woe to pregnant mothers and nursing, or woe to pregnant women and nursing mothers on that day, the great tribulations. That's the natural birth, because they reject the Messiah. So everybody just think about what I've said here on a spiritual sense. Don't try to relate it with being flesh and blood human, or you're not gonna get the picture. It's not gonna work. But understand what I'm saying from the Spirit. I bet you feel just like I feel also. Anybody who's walking the Lord, I bet we all feel Even though we can't experience it, some of us, especially us men on a physical level, we can understand by relation to that what that must feel like for a woman to be 36 months pregnant, or 36 weeks pregnant and be ready to deliver. That's how we feel. That's how I feel right now in the spirit. God bless.